All right, good morning. We are in Exodus lesson 8b. So this is going to be 2 chapters. It was a strange way I broke it up this week, I know. For those of you who are not following really carefully by what I say each week about what we're doing the next week, some of you did last part of this week's homework. I know Carol's going, me, that was me. And that can happen, but it doesn't hurt. It just means you get to go back during the week and refresh and make sure you actually got everything as closely studied as you wanted to. But we did Exodus 23 and 24, and that's what we're going to cover today. Now, so to move into this, what I want to do is take a step back and say, I listened to a sermon. I don't know if it's exactly a sermon because it was like I think the voice is AI generated, but it's a group that goes back to original teachings and recaptures the fullness of the original language, and they bring in full context for indefinite. It's really, really good. I've sent them out before, like on the bread of life, where we did the study on the bread for the manna from heaven. Oh, right. Okay, so it's that particular group. And what I listened to one this morning, and it absolutely was fantastic support to something that I saw when I was laying out I don't know if it was 23. Yeah, it was in chapter 23 in Exodus 23, a particular point. It was one little point. It's kind of this small if you're running along quickly. But when I coupled what I saw in that particular passage with what I heard this morning, there is so much richness in God's word. There is so much depth to it, and it's so easy for us to skirt past things sometimes. So because we know that we are taking a big, almost an overview look at Exodus as we're going through, we are not going into the minutia of every single point and really, exponentially looking through everything that could be there. But I do encourage you on your own, if you are captured by any one point or any one verse or any one subject matter that comes up, spend a little extra time and do that one thing for yourself as a gift. Because while you're in the context of the flow is when you're going to best comprehend and be able to absorb and actually make proper interpretation of the depth or the richness of that particular subject matter. So that's just a word of exhortation to you, because for me, I find that's when God teaches me the best, is when I go through it and I'm doing it in its context. I think there was something we had said earlier. I had said, I never knew that because I've never studied Exodus in its full context. I've always just dropped into Exodus 20 or whatever and pulled a few things out, But when you see it in its full flow of thought, you're able to pick up on some of the subtleties that are in there. And it's just such a great opportunity for real worship and real spiritual growth. So I encourage you to do that. And I'll share with you some of the things I saw when we get to those points. One thing I want to start out with, though, is I want us to see how this Exodus, in particular 24, let me see what it said in 23. Yeah, okay, so 23 opens, you shall not bear false report, right? And you can tell by the way what is said here, it's a continuation, right? That it links back. Well, then you go to 24, and the first 3 or 4 words there says, and then he said to Moses. So my question to you is, who is he? God. Very good. And where does the beginning of this conversation? Because I want you to put a note at the top of your observation worksheet to link you back to the beginning of this. Does anybody know about when this all began? Okay, you think 19? Okay, I started beyond that. Okay, 19 where?
I think it's, because Moses is already talking to the Lord in 20, or 1920 rather, the Lord came down on Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And the Lord spoke to Moses.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So, but that was when, and so Moses did that. But then, okay, so that's a good, okay, I actually had only gone back to Exodus 20, verse 22. Then the Lord said to Moses. I only went back until I saw where the Lord said to Moses, is what I did. I went to Exodus 20, 22. Yeah, because in 23 it's Moses said to the Lord, so God is he's responding to him. The people cannot come up to Mount. So the Lord is speaking to Moses in 19, chapter 19 there, and the Lord said to him this. But he's talking to him while he's still down amongst the people. Did y'all happen to pay attention to that? It's not while he's up on the mountain with the Lord. He didn't go to a special place to meet with the Lord. The Lord
Yes,
is...
he did. In verse 19:20, the Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Then the Lord called
He
Moses
called to
the top,
Moses.
and
Oh,
Moses went up. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, go down.
okay.
Warn the people that they shouldn't do all these things. And then
Oh, you're right.
he went
You're
down
right.
to the people and told them, and then he goes back up, I guess.
Okay, so it's going up and down, up and down. Yeah, up and down. We did talk about that. You're right. Okay, so I didn't go back that far last night when I was rushing through this. Okay, I'm just going to give another little disclaimer. I had a crazy week of painting. Crown molding, baseboards, walls, ceilings, doors all over in the inside of my house. So at my house, I had it done, but that means unpacking all your wall, taking everything down, moving the furniture, everything's covered. It was chaos at my house all week long. They finished Saturday night, all day Sunday, I put my house back together. In between all this, I was trying to get homework. It was a little crazy for me. So anyway, sometimes I'm more careful. I go back a little bit further. But I did go back to 20, and I marked 2022 as the place where it was the first time, because all I did was I went chapter by chapter back until I hit a place where I saw when the conversation started. So then the Lord said to Moses in 22, begins this conversation. Are you catching it? Okay, so you're right. There's been ongoing, but in 2022, he says, then the Lord said to Moses, you shall say to the sons of Israel, you yourselves have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. You shall not make, and then he begins to give instructions. Are you catching it? So that's how that's all I needed to do was to get to that point where I knew this is a conversation God is having with Moses. It began at the beginning of him giving these instructions. Yes, he's given the 10 Commandments. He gave the 10 Commandments first.
You're just talking about when did he start the ordinance part.
Right. When did he start the ordinance part? And also, when did this portion of the conversation start? So when he gets to 23, he's talking at the end of these ordinances. Now, part of this is really interesting. How many of you have done any more research about things, any points of interest that you saw along the way in him giving out of these ordinances of how you're to treat people? What are the legal implications? Did anybody see anything or hear anything this week that kind of related to what we're studying? I saw an interesting one on the concubines. That's why I asked about it.
Well, I said this last week, and again, through 22:17, it looks like he's talking to the judges, if then this, if they do this, and then this. But on 20:21, it starts getting personal.
Yeah.
It's not like he's talking to the judges.
Right. Well, and actually he says it to Moses and the judges in 22. Do you see it?
Yeah.
2022. So he's speaking to Moses specifically and then those who might be with him at that moment. But yes, there is definitely a change in the pronoun of whom he's speaking to. We don't like changing in pronouns, right? But here we do. What he's saying is, this is going to be then what kind of a covenant? It's a it's a national covenant. But here's where the nuance is, and it's why it's a good thing that you brought this up, because it is a national covenant with personal responsibility. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that's really cool. And the fact that you picked up on that, Carol, is really good. And it's a little point, it's a nuanced point, again, that I didn't pick up on myself. But as soon as you say it, you go, oh yeah, there it is. Because all the time throughout Israel's history, we see that God is dealing individually with people. You know, each of the kings are individually dealt with, the people themselves who are judged. Even before all this is settled, because we're not to the settled point on any of this. They're going to make a golden calf, and God's going to judge individuals, not the whole collective. So there's individual responsibility and accountability in judgment, but there's a national responsibility for obedience that gives the overall imagery or representation of who God is to the world. And as long as the nation on the whole, collectively, the majority are doing the right thing and God's name is still being honored to a degree that God can tolerate, as far as the failure in it, but if he can tolerate, if it's portraying him, then he continues to bless them. But when they finally hit that tipping point, right, and they have gone so far where his holy name has been blasphemed among the nations, then he brings in judgment to the nation. Right. And I think that's a really good point to kind of discuss, because often when we're reading through the scripture, that is confusing to us. We're like, well, and also we want to, in the New Testament, always bring it more forward to a grace, grace, grace. Salvation is individual and personal, and it is. But is the covenant of the law a salvation covenant? The answer is no. Which covenant was salvation? Our new covenant. And which one before the covenant of law was also salvation? Abrahamic covenant, because he believed God and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. So there's some distinctions in covenants. It's always important to keep yourself in proper context. And sometimes what it is it's a message of plumb line doctrine. These are the standards. This is what is expected. But even though God expects them to keep the 10 holy laws, what is he going to do right afterwards? He's going to give them a sacrificial system that will acknowledge and give them opportunity to confess sin, because they're going to fail in it. I just think that's an amazing picture of who the Lord God is. And Yahweh, he says, I was not known by Yahweh before. I am now presenting myself as Yahweh. I want you to know I am the Lord. I'm the Lord who forgives. I'm the Lord who provides. I'm the Lord of provision, of leading, of guiding, of power, of authority. I mean, he's been presenting. I think that word Lord is all encompassing of every aspect of who God is. It's like, I think I understand a little bit better when he said, this is my memorial name forever. Because in the memorial name, he's saying it encompasses pretty much everything that is true about God. And he's been, has he not been displaying that to us so far? I mean, at this turn he's doing this, at this turn he's doing this, and then he's doing this, and then he's doing this. And you're getting to see all the pieces, but in the totality, he said, this is my memorial name forever. So that is a beautiful thing. Okay, so now we're in 23, and we're saying this is a continuation. It's the Lord speaking to Moses and to the congregation, so it's being communicated directly to Moses, and then Moses and the elders, then they convey this out to the people, but Moses in particular, it's Moses' job to be the mouthpiece of God for the people. What do we know about that picture imagery? Is there anything that you can recall about what the imagery is of Moses' role?
He's the Jesus.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, so he's the prophet who is, he's the foreshadow of the ultimate prophet who is Jesus. He's the one who leads and guides Israel, foreshadowing Jesus who leads and guides us. There's just so many of these pictures and foreshadowings that also keep coming up in here. So, all right, now, as a reminder, don't forget to keep your at-a-glance chart up to date, that things are recorded in here for you. I hope you're doing that faithfully. Okay, let's get started on Exodus 23. We've just finished last week going through a variety of ordinances. In 22, theft and property rights, property damage, safekeeping and loans. Caretakers are responsible to care or to watch over. Seduction, immorality, idolatry, care for the needy. And so we're now into this next section here. What are we seeing in Exodus 23 on the whole? What are some of the major subject matters that you see going on here? I'm not going to write down our key messages like I normally would. I'm just going to have you tell me what you see. What's going on in 23?
False charges and oppression.
Okay, so these are more judicial laws to handle false charges. That's pretty profound. Is there anybody that you can think of off the top of your head who had a false charge and it put him on a cross? Yeah, and they allowed false witnesses to come through. They took that testimony as factual, even though they knew it was not, and then they nailed him to a cross. So interesting, right? That here within the very law that God gives to him is, you shall not bear false reports, right? All right. So the idea of in that, don't bear false reports and don't be malicious, allow malicious witnesses, and don't do evil, all these things. Then what is the next subject that comes on?
How to handle the land.
The land, that comes starting in verse 14. What about starting in verse 10? The Sabbath. So it's the sabbatical law. It's all about how you are to let it rest and so forth. I'm in 23, verse 10. You shall sow your land for 6 years and gather its yield, but on the 7th year you shall let it rest. So it's a Sabbath. But in this case, there's two kinds of Sabbaths, and we're going to talk about what the two Sabbaths are that are declared there. But he's reminding them, you have a Sabbath system or pattern that I have set up. We've talked about this before. One of the ones before was about the slaves and how often they're let go, right? And how long did the what did we call them? We didn't call them slaves. We called them indentured servants. Thank you. That was the right word. So how long did an indentured servant was made to serve? For 6 years, and that was the limit. And then after that, what was to happen on the 7th? They get to go free. So that sabbatical pattern is seen throughout the book of Exodus. It was laid down where? Where was the beginning of the sabbatical? Back in creation. So God continues to bring it forward. Again, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's really cool. These are set down in law. So here he's saying there are within this system of laws that he's giving to them, he's talking about honoring the sabbatical rest, whatever that is stipulated. Sometimes that sabbatical rest stretches longer. Rather than being 7 days or 7 years, sometimes it's 7 periods, and I'm not sure what the period length is, but if you get 50 years for the Jubilee rest, how many years? It's like a bunch of them, but it's sevens of sevens is how they'll figure it out. And if I had time to research it, I could have done that, but I didn't. Okay, and then we go into, in 14 to 19, what? The feasts that are going to be for the land, exactly. And then we get to, ta-da, Kristen, 20 to 33 is covering what? There's an angel, and he's going to do what? The whole subject is about their doing what? Going back into the land, and how they're going to get there, who's going to take them, and so forth. And literally, who is doing it for them. So that's an interesting chapter. So what you see then is, do you see a break in, or a switch? Okay, so where's the switch fall? Okay, verse 20, then it goes to the conquest. Before that, it's still all about some kind of laws, right?
When it's laws to then this is what I'm doing.
Right. So laws, and then how they're going to go in and take the land. So this is really cool. Is there a difference between the laws of verses 1 to 9 and the laws of 10 to 19? Did you classify them differently? Do you guys remember back, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, I said there, I had to be back when we did chapter 20, and I had said the law is going to break down. We're going to get there, where right now he's just giving us the plain moral law in chapter 20, right? It's like this is the platform upon which everything else after is going to be built upon. So he gave them the moral law in chapter 20. Then what does he switch to after that? In Exodus 21, which takes us all the way to 23:19, or 23:10 rather. Judicial law. Then what happens then in starting in verse 10 all the way to the point where we hit the land subject. What kind of laws is it? Rituals, ceremonial laws, okay? It's worship laws. So that's your distinction. If you didn't catch that, it's really good. You see judicial law in 1 through 9 has as a continuation from the chapters before, okay? So all the way back in Exodus 21, all the way to 23:9 is your judicial law. Then he gives a very short break, and it's very interesting in a way, because in the same way that we saw Exodus 20 giving a big, broad picture of the fundamentals for everything that's going to springboard off of it, the moral laws, it's just 10, and they're simple and they're crisp, and they weren't detailed for us. Then we get into more details of judicially how they handle it, and he gave us quite a bit of chapters with, what did we call them? Precedents for law. Oh, you guys weren't here last week. Precedents for law. So these are examples of possibilities that are going to come up, and when these possibilities come up, this might be how you would want to handle them. But we know from America's judicial system, there, and probably many places in the world, I don't know about other places, but in America we have precedents. That's what our Supreme Court falls back on. They go back and look at the precedents that's been laid down, and they read them and say, does this new case fall into any one of these? And the answer is yes or no. Once they identify the one that fits, then they use that as their plumb line, their scale of balance, to try to come up with a verdict, right, how they're going to handle it. So that's what we just got through looking at. We're going to finish up today when we hit all the way to verse 9, 1 through 9 of this chapter. But then what we get when we hit 10 to 19 is the ceremonial laws. How much information do we get? This much. What do you think is going to happen later? He's going to build on it. So what I am seeing, it just hit me. Do you remember when we did Revelation? I said he would give big picture, which is just a little bit of the pieces of information in a very short amount of time. That's big picture. Then he goes into the minuscule points on it. So big picture, fine point. Big picture, fine point. That's kind of what we're seeing here, the same pattern. So 20 was big picture on moral laws. Then he went into judicial laws to give you a whole lot of precedents so that you'd know how to handle it. Now he's starting here at the ceremonial laws in 10 to 19. He's going to give you big picture, just kind of briefly mention them without any real big detail. Later, we're going to get a lot more detail. Okay? I think that's really interesting to know. Okay. So any other points about Exodus 23, things that came up for you that you think we need to bring out before we start going through paragraph by paragraph? Okay, tell me how you titled chapter 23. Well, we've already talked about there are a couple of kinds of laws going on here, right? So what are the two kinds of laws that are being mentioned in this chapter? Judicial and ceremonial laws. And then there's a break, and we have another section on what? Entering the land. So title it for me. Sometimes our titles, when you're doing historical books, your titles are people, places, and events, right? They're not fancy, they're not warm and fuzzy kind of titles usually. They're just real pragmatic. This is what's in this chapter about this bigger picture called Exodus. Through the Exodus, where God is drawing his people out, he's going to establish them as a nation. We've already seen that we're in the heart right now of them negotiating the terms of agreement with God. God's giving the terms. They must agree, right? But he's giving these terms of agreement. Will you be okay with this? Will you follow this? Will you obey me in these things? This is going to be my law. So he's laying down the law. So in this chapter, what are the things God's laying down?
More judicial.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? When I first went through, I did that. Even more judicial was my title. But then the more I got into it, the more I saw a little bit to develop a little bit more, because it wasn't just judicial. I'm sorry, okay, judicial and ceremonial laws. And then what's the entering the land? And it's really instruction. And this is very interesting. It's instruction, concern, because here's what's interesting. What are some of the things he tells them about when they enter into the land here?
No covenants with anybody else. Well, them or their gods. You're supposed to get rid of the...
Right. And like in 29, look at verse 29.
He's going to drive them out little by little.
Little by little. So he's saying to them, are you okay with this? Or do you think I'm just supposed to just, boom, hand it to you? This is the terms of my condition. I have this land for you, and I will give it to you. But you must understand, this is how it's going to happen. Now, this is very interesting. When you think about your personal relationship with Jesus in the new covenant, don't we have the same thing? Don't we come to God? Actually, a lot of us, I know me personally, initially in my young years, even just before I came into faith in Christ, and then went through the tragedy that brought me in, there's an expectation, well, God, you're just supposed to hand it to me. You're supposed to be a God that's good. You're supposed to be full of mercy and just love. So, and I think that for many years in America, we preached a gospel that was a fairy tale almost about what relationship with God was like. So in our relationship, do you understand that in your life today, he is not driving out the demons of your life, the bad habits of your life, the past of your life, immediately and overnight? And for some of us, some of our demons and some of our situations, although it's all covered by the blood, which we're going to talk about in a bit, yet there are those things which remain as a thorn. And you have to daily submit to him. You have to daily commit to faithfully obeying him, regardless of whether he removes that addiction or whether he removes that horrible person that you can't hardly handle and deal with, or if he heals your body, or if he takes away the adversities that are coming against you. Are you following? This is an amazing thing. So this is not just how they're going to enter. It is instruction about how it's going to happen on his terms. Everybody following me at this point? Okay, so this is instruction on how they will enter the promised land. I think that's interesting. So these are instructions that are judicial, instructions that are ceremonial, and this is instruction about how they're going to get into the promised land and how they will enter. So he's letting them know up front, it's not going to be a bed of roses, and it's not going to be you just waltzing in and I'm handing it to you. This is going to be something that we are going to have a collaborative effort in, and we are going to work on this together. I'm going to use you, and sometimes I'm going to do it in spite of you. That happens a lot in my life. In spite of me, he will accomplish what he wants. And he says, I have begun a good work in you, and I will fulfill it. I will bring it to its completion. Nothing is going to thwart God accomplishing in you what he wants to accomplish. But he will do it individually. He will do it in a collective whole in the body of Christ. He will do it through the circumstances and the hardships of your life, and they won't all go away. Paul's prayer about take away this thorn in my flesh is a good example of that. And he said, no, my grace is sufficient for you. Sometimes he needs you to have those thorns. We don't understand it in the moment. We sure hate it. But the question to you then is your faith based on God giving you what you want, or is your faith based on who he is? Right? Okay, all right, so Our title is Judicial and Ceremonial Laws. That's the first half of the chapter. The second part is instruction on how they will enter the land. And the reason I say instruction is God is saying, these are the conditions of my covenant. Are you willing to accept them? Because that's what he's about to do with them here. Okay? All right, paragraphs. Let's start with 1 to 3. Oh, that's not very good. That's too light. Let's get rid of that one. Maybe this one's better. Let's see. That's a little better. Okay, 1 to 3 is the first paragraph. What do you see there? So we already said that we know that we're in the section called what? Judicial, right? Judicial laws, and it's going to cover 1 through 9, just so that you know that. And now we're in 1 to 3, and what is this first judicial instruction about how they're going to handle what subject matter? That's right. Has to do with the kind of things that you will say, particularly when you're put under oath, right? And the purpose for this would be for what? Did you see in order that kind of a statement? Yeah, that you don't pervert justice. So there's really kind of two main things going on here, is that your testimonies then will be what? Regardless of who you're talking to or about, no matter what your past relationship is with that person, what? The truth. You better be telling the truth. The whole truth. Now, so what does God say in the 10 Commandments, which this is based off of? Thou shalt not lie, right? So again, we're seeing a practical application through a case precedence that's being laid out for you. And he's saying, if these are the scenarios, for instance, if you're going to go into a court, you must not bear a false report. And you cannot join your hand with a wicked man to be a malicious witness. So in that case, it almost sounds like he's being bought off to tell the false truth, right? To bear false witness. You're being paid to do so. You shall not follow the masses. Again, don't be pressured by the masses. When we go into a courtroom and we go to be a juror, that's one of the things that we're told. Don't be biased. You understand they're innocent until proven guilty. Don't be swayed. Just look at the facts, right? So are you kind of catching this judicial system of a courtroom? Don't follow the masses in doing evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute so as to turn aside after a multitude in order to pervert it. So don't let the masses sway you to do what's wrong. Nor shall you be what? Partial to a poor man in his dispute. So if the poor man can't pay you off, don't let that be the thing that sways you. If he's right, he's right. If he's wrong, he's wrong. Don't be for him. Don't be against him. Be for truth, right? Very good. So that goes back to Exodus 20. So title this one for me. What are you going to do? Be truthful. And concerning how you treat different classes and different people and how you get swayed?
Don't be biased.
Yeah, don't be biased. That was the first word I used. Don't be biased. Be truthful and unbiased. Or I also put impartial in testimonies. And I think we could take that even to the level of personal relationships as well, not even just in a courtroom. But I think this could fall, if you got into the subject matter of gossip and slander, for instance, that this could be another point. This could be a case study upon which you could then go to and say, yeah, you don't get to slander people, and you don't get to gossip about people and ruin their reputation, right? So that their business goes down the drain because of something you said that was based on your emotional feelings, not on fact, right? Boy, that one is hard for some of us, right? we get wrapped up in our emotions. Okay, so do not then bear false witness. And that's in 2016, right? Okay, that's where I did this one. Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God, right? Tell the truth. So that was kind of just a little extra thing I thought in there. There's a verse that Kay gave us at the close of our homework this week. I thought it fits very nicely right here. Very last sentence, very last thing she says to you on your homework this week. She gives you a Bible verse. It's actually my favorite Bible verse.
Oh, yeah.
Micah 6:8, right? Isn't that awesome? I love it. Because in Micah, he says, what does the Lord require of thee but to love justice, to do mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? Do justice.
Mercy.
Love mercy. And I might have it out of order. Do I?
No.
Okay. Walk humbly with your God. I thought I had it right. This is going to be on my tombstone. I don't know if you knew that or not. I have my funeral all planned out and all bought and paid for and all that kind of stuff. And they asked, what do you want on your tombstone? And so I picked this verse. This is it's been my favorite verse for a long time, and I think it's just do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. I love it. And if you want to bring this to a New Testament verse, think of something that maybe comes to your mind on the idea of not bearing false witness. Don't cause them to end up in jail or fined for something that's not even true, right? What if that was happening to you, right? So can you think of a New Testament verse that we could add up here? I got an Old Testament in Micah. Kay gave it to us. How about the simple one? Do unto others. Yeah? That's not too hard, right? No. Do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. Okay, and that's in Matthew 7:12, among these other places as well, but that's one verse. Okay, so that's the idea of the don't be biased, That's your typical statue of the woman with the blindfold and their hands out with the two scales, and they're kept in balance. It's just be balanced, be fair, be just, tell truth, and don't be swayed by people, and don't out of your emotions be biased toward a person either. To hurt them when it's not just, it's not fair. Okay. Any other points that you want to bring out on that one? Did you guys do any extra work on it that I didn't mention up here? No? Okay, is this the way it's going to be? We're going to be through this good timing. Okay, so what is in 4 and 5?
I did 4 all the way through 9, but maybe I didn't see the distinction here. 4 and 5 is just about your property, your donkey.
If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey wandering away, you shall surely return it. Why is that?
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. It's merciful, it's kind, it's good, it's just, it's fair. But they throw in the caveat here, what if it's your enemy's ox? Do you just let it go? Oh, well, I don't care. I don't like that guy, so good on him. He's losing his ox. Oh, well. And that's the point here. So this is about doing what's right without bias. So that kind of goes back to our title, be truthful and be unbiased. So we're hitting the unbiased part here. And he says, you shall not pervert. Oh, wrong place. You shall see the donkey of one who hates you lying helpless under his load. He shall refrain from leaving it to him. You shall surely release it with him. So it is, because it's kind of giving you 2 different people groups here. Did you notice? It's talking about your enemies in verse 4, and then it goes the one who hates you. It's the opposite. Yeah, good. Karen picked up on it. So it's that contrast between you hate him or the other way around. They hate you, and in both cases, you know it, right? And in either case, though, he's saying basically still, what are you supposed to do when you see them in a situation? Do what is right. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Do what is right. And he gives us the two things. To your enemy, I'm going to make it plural because you might have more than one, or to those who hate you. Okay, let's do a verse. We got a good verse on that? Yeah. What do you think?
Do you want to do good to your...
Yes, put heaping coals upon their heads. Do good to whom? Your enemies. Love those who hate you, and do good to those who... Okay, so let's do love your enemies. I think it's helpful, for me anyway, to kind of get a scripture cross-reference along with what's being said in the passage, because it helps me to go, okay, that's what it's actually saying here. It's actually saying you just need to do what's right, and you are to love your enemies, which is the major two subjects, those who hate you and the one that you hate, basically, your enemies, okay? Okay. Any other thoughts? These are pretty simple. We're kind of at the end of this, so we got one more in the judicial cases. That's going to be 6 to 9. You guys are very quiet today. Did everybody do their homework?
Not much as I normally do.
No, I bet you didn't because you guys were on vacation. Yep. That's understandable, and we totally forgive you.
Thank you.
And excuse it, and are so jealous because you guys got to go on a great trip. You guys went Caribbean?
Cabo.
Cabo?
Mexico.
Cabo. Oh, in Mexico. Got it. See, I've never done Mexico, so I didn't know that one. Okay. Okay, do what is right. Now we're going to go into the next one. What are we seeing in 6 to 9?
False charge.
Yeah. Keep far from a false charge and do not kill the innocent. So in other words, the conviction on this actually might result in their death penalty. And they're saying do not keep far from a false charge. Particularly, I think the emphasis on this is the seriousness of what if there's potentially a death penalty, you are handing a person the responsibility to either execute or acquit, I guess, right? In other words, don't convict who then? Who is he saying they're going to kill and they shouldn't do it? The innocent. Okay, and then the next part of it, which is the contrast, and you shall not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted. And what does it do? It subverts the cause of the just. So basically it's saying do not pervert and do not subvert. Did you notice that? Okay. Okay. Do not pervert it or subvert it. Justice. Okay, so then I did some word studies. Did anybody get around to any word studies on this? Because it helped me, because perverting and subverting, they're really distinct. And I wanted to, let's see, get a different color here. Let's do it with this. Okay, pervert. That's not gonna cut it because you can't see that. There we go. Okay, pervert. It is number 5186. And it means to distort, bend to corrupt, justice. I lost that last word there, right? Thus, what is the outcome? He says in there in verse 6. What happens to the innocent? Mm-hmm. Now, whether that means death penalty or whether that just means he loses his case, either way, it's, you're not supposed to do that. That's in verse 6, okay? So, don't pervert it, to distort it, to bend so as to corrupt justice, and thus the innocent is killed. Then it goes to the next one, and it's to subvert. Okay, and now let's get the word study on that one was 5557. And this one was really interesting because a lot of the verbiage in the dictionary was very similar to pervert, but the subtlety was when I finally got to all of the nuanced dictionaries on it, I came from very clear what it was saying is don't undermine, don't thwart what should be good justice by the things that you do or don't do. So thus then the guilty is not convicted because you thwarted it. You know how God says, my decrees cannot be thwarted, they can't be stopped? Well, in this case, you're stopping justice. So thwarting it or subverting, or to subvert it means to keep it from happening. On the one hand, you pervert it so that an innocent gets convicted. On the other hand, you subvert so that the guilty goes free. Are you seeing it? To subvert it then is to undermine. And see, those word studies are so helpful. It took me a while on this one because I had to really read and try to figure out what was being said. And then I realized there's been these contrasts, enemies and those you hate. That's a contrast. Up here, what was it? Don't bear false witness. I guess it wasn't up here then, was it? There wasn't a contrast. Be truthful, not bias. I guess that would be your contrast there. But here it is subverting and perverting. Undermining, thwarting justice, and thus, he says on this, the guilty, this pen, I keep picking it up and it's not working. So I've got to get rid of it. It might just be this board, but it's not working here. Thus, guilty, not convicted.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose if you stated it in a different way, you could subvert justice and the innocent is killed too. But in this case, he's showing a contrast. It isn't like this word is exclusive to this, but he uses it in the demonstration of it to show you the contrast, that you don't subvert or pervert, either one.
Well, it's kind of like pervert is overtly doing something, and subverting is going under.
Yeah. And then then on this one, the bottom line in verse 9, he says, don't do what?
In 9?
I think it's in verse 9.
No.
Don't oppress a stranger.
Oh, yeah. Since you were strangers.
Right. And this is a subject that came up a couple of times in my morning, this morning of my personal devotional that I was listening to online while I'm doing my hair and makeup, right? Was the widows, the orphans, and the strangers come up over and over and over in the law of God because they are the most vulnerable. They are the ones who are supposed to be really protected above and beyond anyone else, and always to be really given the benefit of the doubt because they don't have the finances. They're not like these rich people that have pockets and pockets of money, or they've got a lot of power because of their political position or their job. They're the little people like me and you who are just the commoners, or worse, even worse than us, the really poor, who have no means, and they're literally at the mercy of a system that will do what's right regardless. And they're saying, and so God puts in his laws special attention to saying about the strangers amongst you, about the orphans among you, about the widows who have no man to stand up on their behalf, no sons, no husbands, no brothers, no uncles. These are the widows. And widows, the scripture says widows indeed, meaning they have no man in their life that's going to come and provide for them and take care of them and protect them. These are to be especially paid close attention to, that they're not subverted. So I listened to a story this morning about this the widow woman who comes to the judge, who's pleading with him until he finally gives in. I'm going to send that link out with Kristen, if Kristen will remind me, because in there he talked about, again, the widows and the orphans. And the storyline, I think, is often portrayed in a way that, and this is what he's going to explain in this video, portrayed in a way that says, oh, she just keeps going back and begging until the judge relents. That is not what it's saying at all. It's saying that she is faithful regardless of the outcome. She knows what's right and she stands by it. The context of that particular parable is when Jesus is saying, waiting for my return. In waiting for my return, be faithful and persistent. I'm coming even if you never see it. And the contrast is that judge who had to be coerced and twisted because he was about to be humiliated by people knowing how he was treating the widow, in contrast to who God is for us. And I'm going to bring this into another point here later when we get to the next part. But I know it's such a great, I love it when God gives me things that I'm like, oh, that fits here, and that fits here, and that fits here. And it's like, God's word is so amazing. Okay, so that covers our judicial laws, right? Now we're ready to cover ceremonial laws.
1 hour left.
Okay. These are so good, though. Who would have ever thought these would be interesting? I agree. It's like, no, these are not supposed to be this good. They really are good. Especially if you can move them into your heart with application for current events and bring them into some New Testament cross-referencing it. I think it's really, it enriches your time with the Lord. Okay, now we do a switcheroo. So talking about how you're to handle your land. And that's very interesting, but the emphasis is stated right away in the two verses. You shall sow your land for 6 years and gather in its yield, but on the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Meaning what? And I did not look that word fallow up. Does anybody know what that word fallow is? Did anybody do that one?
It is basically.
To recoup. Or do you think that to lie fallow means you don't till the soil and you don't
Leave it alone.
Right.
Farmers do it now.
Right.
Farmers do it now.
Some do, yeah. The good ones do. The good farmers leave a season. It depletes the soil, and you need time for it to refresh. Okay, which has got a practical application of it, but the spiritual application in here is much far beyond that. It has to do with the Sabbath rest, right? So what we're seeing here then is this is 10 to 19 is the ceremonial laws. Let me look here. And we're going to do 10 to 13. This is 10 to 19. Am I correct on that? For the ceremonial laws, right? These are 1 to 9, 10 to 19. And this one is on, the first one then has to do with doing what? What kind of a rest is it? It says keep the Sabbath for who? Or for what? The land. Okay, keep the Sabbath for the land. And it's for 6 years plant and harvest and all those things, and 7th year rest. So there's your 6 and 1 pattern that we've talked about before. That's in verses 10 and 11. And what is it? Any other points in here? Did anybody do any cross-referencing? Let's go to Leviticus 25, 6 and 7. I can't remember what I found in there, but I put it on my sheet, so it might have been good. It might have been interesting. Where's my other?
Leviticus 5 what?
Leviticus 25, 6 and 7.
6 and 7 is, the Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you, for yourself and for your male and female slaves, and for your hired servant sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle and the wild animals that are in your land. All its yield shall be for food.
Okay, so additional cross-referencing on this really helped me to parse this out a little bit clearer, because it almost sounds like this is just from a Gentile mind, my mind, and maybe I'm off, because I often am. But my thinking was that means for 6 years you can pick the crops and eat them and plant them and till them and do all those things. On the 7th, the land is not to be touched. That's how I saw it.
Exactly what it is.
Wrong. Okay, so this is interesting. Yes, you don't touch the land for tilling and sowing, but can you eat of it?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you can eat it. That's what I'm saying. My impression was they couldn't pick of it even. They were to leave it. Okay, I know. So right, exactly. So go on to Jeremiah 25, 7 and 11. Somebody look up that one.
Jeremiah 7.
You know I'm going to give you verses to look up every week. 25, 7 and 11 is one verse. Let's see how far that gets us. Yeah, 25, verse 7 and 11.
Okay, 7 is, yet you have not listened to me, declares the Lord, in order that you might provoke me to anger with the work of your hands to your own harm.
Right, okay, and then 11.
11, and this whole land shall be a desolation and a horror, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years.
Okay, so this gets the opening piece where what they're saying is, you have provoked me by the work of your hands. He's literally saying in there, you guys have been working the land all continuously. You have not been giving it its Sabbath rest. So go on to 2 Chronicles 36:21, and then someone else look up Leviticus 26:34. Who's got Leviticus? Leviticus 26:30. Okay, and you're going to read 2 Chronicles 36:21. Okay. And the rest of you can jump in here and help out with the reading and cross-referencing for us anytime you want. Okay, got 2 Chronicles 36:21.
21 just says, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah until the land had enjoyed its Sabbath.
Okay, so there you go. So the first one we looked at in Jeremiah 25 is he says, you've been provoking me by the work of your hands. And he says, and I am going to basically it's going to make a horror and an abomination of you, the nation of Israel. And how does he do that? He's going to cast them off their land. So Chronicles says, I'm going to keep you there for 70 years, right? Until what?
Until the 70 years are complete.
Right. And
And all the days of its desolation, it kept Sabbath.
there you go. So what happens is he's saying, remember when Israel was cast into Babylonian captivity for 70 years? We all are familiar with that. Why were they cast there? Well, one of the reasons is they had not given the land its sabbatical rest. And so in these first two verses we've looked at, what it's showing you is he was angered by the work of their hands. They kept tilling the soil. He says, I'm going to make an abomination of you, or horror of you. And then he says, and you're going to be in there for 70 years until the land gets its sabbatical rest. Because for all these years, they were on the land, I think it was 400 and something years, whatever it was. And then he says, so out of all the years that you should have given to me, you've missed 70 years of rest. So I'm taking 70 years, I'm keeping you off the land until I get my 70 years. Isn't that amazing? Okay.
It was 2 Chronicles.
36:21. It is on my chart, so
I blinked out for a moment.
that's okay.
Jeremiah 25, 7, 11 talk about 70 years.
70, it tells you the work of their hands, and that he's going to make them an abomination.
Isn't there a Jeremiah scripture about it being 70 years? Because the whole point.
That's
of
what we
Daniel-
just, in
that was
2 Chronicles.
Is that from out of there? Because I'm just remembering from when we did Daniel. Daniel reads this roll of Jeremiah.
Yes,
and cries.
he says for
He knows
70
he'll
years,
be
but
there.
it doesn't give you all the connection to this law. And that's, yes, that one is there, and that one tells them, oh, he remembered what Jeremiah said, that they were almost at the end, and he goes into prayer and supplication, and that's in Daniel 9. You're right. It's a good remembrance.
So
Woohoo!
So somewhere in Jeremiah, it clearly says they're going to be there.
Exactly, it does. It does. But what I'm doing is I'm tracking why, and it has to do with the breaking of this law. And so the last one is Leviticus 26:34.
Yep. Then the land shall enjoy its Sabbath so as long as it lies desolate while you are in your enemy's land. Then the land shall rest and enjoy its Sabbath.
Wow. There you go. So
Serious.
isn't that cool? But it's a great exercise in going, okay, how did they end up, what is this law? Where have we seen this in Scripture? Well, a lot of us are very familiar with Daniel, the story of Daniel, and Ezekiel for that matter, and they're in their captivity for 70 years in Babylon. We know because of what Jeremiah or Daniel says in 9, they were dictated that they would be there for 70 years. But what a lot of people don't know is this goes back to this law. Because they were told every 7th year, that sabbatical year was a year of rest. And guess what they did not do? They didn't give it its rest. Or at least on the whole. Maybe some individuals did. There's always that possibility. But the nation on the whole did not. And when God judges them, he judges them collectively as a nation. The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's an old movie. The good, the bad, and the ugly. They all go into their captivity because nationally they have profaned God's holy name. Okay? So this is an example of that. So in it, though, what we do know also is that the 70 years of planning, and this is a year, it is a year of rest, but during the rest, in the rest, and it says the people and the animals may eat. And I'm expanding on this. Eat of last year's regrowth. I'm going to call it regrowth. In other words, they didn't touch anything, but it just grew up on its own, like a perennial plant comes up on its own, right? They come up every year whether you do anything or not. I found that out this year. I had a plant in a pot that I didn't know was a perennial, and I hadn't touched it yet. I hadn't had time. And all of a sudden, this thing started growing. I'm going, what is that? And pretty soon I had this beautiful, bright orange, gorgeous plant, plus another foliage that grew in front of it that was a lighter color. So it has a nice, it's just gorgeous. And I'm going, they were both perennials. They both happened to be in the same pot. I didn't touch it, which I said online to one of my friends, that's why it grew. I didn't touch it. I didn't speak to it. I didn't get too close. I just ignored it, and it grew. Otherwise, if I touch it, they die. You know, they don't like me at all. So, okay, so that's the first part of it. Now, the next part of it is in 12, actually, the next part of it is 12 and 13. So we're actually doing, yeah, right. So this was 10 and 11. Now we're going to do 12 and 13 because there's a second part to this. It's also keeping the Sabbath land. What's the second part? Yes, and then this one is so in other words, this is the weekly rest of Sabbath, right? However you want to say it. This one is the land rest once every 7 years. This one is the weekly rest, and what is it? 6 days work? And then what?
Cease from labor.
Day a week. Cease from labor. So it shows you two kinds of sabbaticals. Did you see how big and sweeping the brush is again? Where he's into the ceremonial laws, but he's not giving you details. We're going to get those later. We're getting this sweeping big picture. There's a sabbatical rest for the land, and there's a sabbatical rest of the week. And the weekly one is for the people and the animals. And he goes on, he says, who is that speaking of? I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. Yeah. So this is going to affect, he says, this is for you. It's for the beasts. Right? basically your beasts of burden. And number 3, it's for your servants. And number 4, aliens. Aliens or strangers. Isn't it interesting that he makes sure that you're saying it's also these aliens and strangers and servants? Because here's interesting. For you, if they're amongst you, it should be understood it's for everyone. But what we've already seen is he had to make certain laws for people who were indentured servants, even though those indentured servants were actually Hebrew people. On the whole, there were others also, but he doesn't address those right there. It's primarily for those who are Hebrews who got themselves into trouble. They didn't pay their bills. They borrowed money they couldn't pay back, or they were very, very poor to begin with. And for instance, like the one we looked at was the daughter who's sold into indentured servitude with the expectation of marriage, so that the woman would be brought up in her standing of lifestyle through this relationship to whom she was first sold in as a servant. Probably, in other words, a younger girl. She spends 6 years serving, and somewhere along that 6 years, when she comes to the point of age of marrying, then she would marry either the man or someone else in that family in order to bring her up in the world. And that was it was a part of it was actually really good. Not all indentured serving was bad. The other thing indentured serving did for Israel is it did not put into place a huge prison system. We have a prison system that corrals people by the hundreds of thousands or millions at this point. And it doesn't give them a way to really make restitution as they should. But the problem with it, I think a lot of it is the corruption that we have and the lack of laws that we don't really enforce, and the lack of shame on the people who've done bad things. They don't even blush anymore, right? So as we get further and further into history, there's less and less personal guilt, feeling ashamed of what they've done. Can you imagine if you took a person in who had basically embezzled money out of your company, now they're living in your house as your servant? And that's kind of the scenario that God gave to Israel. Their scenario was, if you steal from me, if I steal from you as your worker in your company, then you're going to hire me. You're going to basically pay for me to be in your home, because you're going to be providing a roof over my head, food on my table, and I am indentured to you for no money. I get no payment, but I'm costing you for being with you in a way, but I'm working for you to help work off the debt I stole from you. But the maximum amount of time you get is 6 years. But can you imagine if we had that kind of a system in our world today? Whoa, it would be very different. But that is the way God intended it to be, was to shame people into doing what's right and correcting their behavior. Okay, so yearly rest, or 7th year rest for the land, and the weekly rest for you and your people. All right, now we're going to go on to, that was 12 and 13.
13 was about idols, or other gods. So I didn't know how that had to do with the Sabbath.
Oh, okay, well, I do. Oh, I do. Absolutely. No other gods. So think about what they came out of Egypt and out of pagan worship and so forth. How did they handle any of this? Did they obey any kind of a principle about this? Were they fair and just to their slaves, their servants, their people? Did Pharaoh even want Israel to go out for one time out of the 400 years they had been there to go and worship him in the wilderness? What did he say? No, they can't go, right? So here so the contrast here is, don't do like the other nations do in their judicial system. Don't not give the land its rest. It needs its rest. Because the resting also, by the way, imagery-wise, what is the resting an image of? What are we recognizing about who did what? God created it. God has given you everything. What did the false pagan gods do? Oh, no, they have a god for the tree, they got a god for the water, they got a god for the frogs, and for everything, right? So they worship the creation, not the creator, and God is saying, you are going to worship me, not other gods. Are you following that okay? Okay, good.
It makes them trust God
Yes.
and not working.
Right.
Because that's scary. You know, what if I don't have enough? You have to trust God.
And isn't it an amazing thing to think that the land actually in the regrowth of the next year would provide for the whole nation for a whole year?
Isn't that amazing?
And that God would make sure it produced the right amount?
It did. And that's what we have to trust God for.
Yes.
We have to do the same thing.
Yes.
In that we don't have this money all saved and not trust God that He's going to provide what we need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Okay, one more. Now we got, this is 14 to 19. Again, another ceremonial, 14 to 19, ceremonial regulation here that's being given. And basically, on the whole, what is he telling them to do?
Honor him
With
with feasts.
feasts. And so, did he stipulate how many there were? Three. Three times a year. So observe 3 feasts a year to me. Okay, so 3 feasts a year. So let's list those feasts. Number 1, and this is really interesting. Again, sweeping picture, right? When we get into the feasts, we know how many feasts do we have on our chart? 7. 7, right? 4 in the spring and 3 in the fall. So we have a total of 7. But here it breaks it down to 3 times. Why do you think it breaks down to 3? How far is the first spring feast until the second one, which is Pentecost? Like 50 days. Pentecost, right? 50 days. So you come at this time, you're going to go home. And then what happens? You come back and you worship me again at this time for this one. Then you go home. When is the next grouping? When is this last one? It's called the Feast of the Ingathering. When is that feast? It's the fall. It's the fall feast. Which, by the way, which of these have been fulfilled? The spring feast. So the first one and the second one. The Feast of the Unleavened Bread and the Feast of the Harvest of the First Fruits, those have been fulfilled in who? Jesus Christ. He's fulfilled those. What about the Feast of the Ingathering? That's all for Israel. That's what God will do for Israel at the end of the age, at his second coming, when all Israel will put their faith and belief on him. And that those last 3 feasts will be fulfilled. I'm just briefly mentioning that to you for clarification purposes, because the way this is stated, again, sweeping. It does not break it down and give you all the details. You get that when you do a study on your feasts. And you would see more details, more of the nuances to all of the points that are actually being, initially just kind of generally stated. It's like the 10 Commandments, just a general statement of 10 points, but without a lot of nuance in it. Well, then you get into the laws, and he's saying, now, if this happens, this is how you should do it. If this happens, this is how you shall do it. Same thing is going on right here. These are your feasts, sweeping. You're coming 3 times to Jerusalem to worship me. And in those 3 times, there's actually going to be a total of 7 feasts. Okay, so unleavened bread is the first one mentioned. What verse was that one? That's in verse 16. Okay, now, who knows what's involved in unleavened? Well, we've already seen a part of this because of what we saw back in chapter 12. What's involved in unleavened bread? There's 3 parts to it. One is what? Passover. Passover. No leaven on Passover, and Passover was eaten because they were in haste and they were leaving the land. The next part is what they are actually calling this in general, unleavened bread. And then the third part of it is what? First fruit.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
I was also confused.
I was
like, what are we doing?
Yeah, what I did.
I'm showing you that later you're going to develop this more. You're going to understand when he just simply says here in a sweeping thing, unleavened bread. Unleavened bread includes all of this.
Yes.
Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. These are all going to fall during the time when they're not eating leaven.
What were you doing?
Right.
with unleavened? Not getting rid of the leaven, sweeping it out of your house.
Oh, yeah. My question was probably too vague. I'm just trying, because I had already introduced to you that there are 7, and I was trying to help you get the 7 under the right title, that's all. Okay, so we got Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits under this very sweeping title of unleavened bread in verse 16. The next sweeping one actually is only one thing, and that was the feast, what?
Ingathering.
Feast of Ingathering. Also in 16, tells you how sweeping he's doing this. And he kind of makes them in the same place right there. And what is this one? This is your Feast of Weeks. Or no, rather, this is your...
Oh, there's one, Feast of Harvest, then the Feast of Ingathering.
Yeah.
Feast of Ingathering. Feast of Weeks, Pentecost. Pentecost, or you can also call it Feast of Weeks sometimes. So you're going to see these used in a variety of ways. This is 50 days after first fruits. Okay? So now you know why you're going to have 3 feasts to me. You're going to come to me 3 times a year. The first time for unleavened bread. The second time you're going to come back 50 days later for the Feast of Ingathering. And then the third one is your Feast of Ingathering. Or, right?
Number 2 is Harvest. Feast of Harvest.
You just did ingathering twice on the board.
Oh, sorry. Feast of Booths.
That's not in there.
I think she's just giving this to us.
Did I get... Wait a second. Let me see. I'm sorry. Hold on. Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Harvest of First Fruits, and Feast of Ingathering. I got the title wrong on this.
Okay.
That's what I did. Sorry. Give me the second one. Feast of Harvest. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, now the Feast of Ingathering. Yeah, I read wrong on my page here is what I did. Okay, so this is Pentecost or Feast of Weeks. This is the Feast of Ingathering, which is also referred to as, have you ever heard of it given another title? When they do the ingathering, they start out with what? The very first one is trumpets. And that's what we're waiting for, the Feast of Trumpets. Then we're going to see Atonement, the Day of Atonement.
Oh, that's right.
And then we're going to see Tabernacle.
And he tabernacles with us.
Yep. And also sometimes it's called Feast of Booths.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean? How complicated this is? It's a little complicated. You have to really parse it out. But this helps you to see that it's 3 times a year you come. That's why it says observe 3 feasts. Technically, it's actually 7 feasts. And they are Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, trumpets, atonement, and tabernacles. These first 4 have been fulfilled by Jesus. So I'm going to put a line right here in red. And I'm going to say they've all been fulfilled. And this is just for your general knowledge. Later, maybe in our work, when we get further down in Exodus, we might go back and really parse this out more carefully. But we know this is fulfilled because Jesus came to the cross. He died as our Passover. He is our unleavened bread. And he is the first fruits as the resurrection from the dead. He is also at Pentecost, then we get the falling of the Holy Spirit. And during that Feast of Weeks. So all of this has been fulfilled in Jesus. We have the falling. Remember, Jesus told his disciples, go back and wait for what the Father promised. 50 days later, the Holy Spirit fell, and we have the Acts chapter 2, the Feast of Pentecost. Okay, so that's the first 2. The third one is the Feast of Ingathering. That one has not yet been fulfilled. Jesus will fulfill it also, just in case you want to know that. but it hasn't been fulfilled yet, okay?
You only have 30 minutes left.
Okay. Whew. He goes on to say then, now we've got a contrast at the end of this. I want to make sure you catch it. In verse 18 and then 19, it's kind of like what you said a moment ago, Susan, is why the no other God statement, right? Yeah. Well, so now he's making another one of these, and it's a contrast statement. You shall not, what?
Offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread.
Okay, so he's making sure, because why is that? If they offer, if they did not fulfill any one of these in the proper way, and they ate something that had yeast, what does that do to God's picture about salvation? It destroys it. And so when God says, don't do it this way, but do it this way, and if you do it this way, you're in trouble. So he makes an emphasis, he contrasts, he says, don't do it by eating leaven. And the whole point is, you must follow my laws exactly in order for them to retain their picture. He's not saying that to us, but that is what God's law, as he instructs. And I also think this kind of goes along the lines with, you only come to the Father the way that I've told you. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. So if we start saying we can practice these feasts any old way we want, eat leaven if we want to, then you have violated the whole principle behind it, the doctrines behind it, the truth behind it, the picture behind it, and you're destroying the religion itself, the relationship that I have, this covenant that you have made with me. So you're promising me you're not going to break that. He's laying this down. Do you agree? Will you do that? Do you understand how serious this is? Do not do it differently than I have laid out. Do it my way. So God gives him that very clear, don't offer blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. Then in 19 he says what?
Bring your first fruits from the soil into the house of the Lord.
Right? And you are not to?
Boil a goat in the milk of its mother.
Okay, so what is he saying there? What does it mean about boiling a young goat in the milk of its mother? Well, it's another pagan idolatry system. There is a pagan worship system. The Canaanites did this, which was very interesting because they're going to go into the land of the Canaanites. And I'm sure other places did it as well, but I saw in my commentary, in my word study on it, Canaanites did this. It's a fertility god worship, and it would have been well known to the Israelites. So don't do it any other way but the way I've said. So the first part is precisely follow my instructions. The other part is, and don't practice anything that has to do with idolatry worship in my system of worship. So later he's going to tell them separate the meat and the milk, and he's going to give them some details. But right now it's sweeping. The principle is pagan worship out, not following my law correctly out. Okay. Yeah. He set it out because of the lifestyle they were moving into. Remember, that's in the nation on the whole, that's what they lived in, was pagan idolatry. And if it was a fertility thing, which is it's really weird. I thought I saw something about milk is a sustenance of life for the newborn, right? And then, so now killing the mother who gives the milk and boiling it in its own milk, the baby in its own, it's like a picture of destruction of life rather than the giving of life. So food that you're to eat for the sustenance of life or the giving of life, or in God's system, the way he has them do it, it's to present, there's an eternal life that I'm offering to you. And this is a picture of this eternal life. And in pagan worship would destroy that whole picture. And it would present, again, death. So it's really interesting when you get into doing some good research on this. And if you don't do the research, you don't get the joy of all that discovery. But it's really, I hope that's what I keep encouraging you guys to do, because there's so much in here that if it takes time, I know. And I know I spend a lot more time than probably anybody wants to. Okay, now we're going to get into, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. 20 to 23, it's going to go 20 to all the way to 33, but the first part of it is going to take you, the first part of this is about this angel again. Oh, I would love to spend time on this. I don't know that I have the time. Who is the angel?
It's gotta be
Well,
Mike.
it would be Jesus.
It has to be
But we
Jesus.
know that Michael's
the warrior.
the prince. over
But what are some of the distinctions when you made a list on this? I'm not going to make my list on this because I don't have time to. My name is in him. And so when yes, that is the key. And he also says about his name, he said, don't disobey him. Do not be rebellious toward him, for he will not what? Pardon your transgression. Can Michael, the angel, pardon transgression? No. So this was higher than Michael, right? Since my name is in him, so one of our major themes that we've seen is how he's presenting himself as the I am. And literally this my name is the I am statement again. So this is a theophany of Christ, or a Christophany, they call them also. The people perceived God by the thunder, is said back in 2018. And then they were led by a cloud and fire in Exodus 14:19, the angel of the Lord. So that starts all the way back at the beginning. And now you can go into cross-references and see exactly what is distinguished out. It explains it more through a commentary, basically. I'm going to give you two verses. Nehemiah 9:12-14. So Nehemiah. Now Numbers 9:15-23. And you can look those up and see what those tell you on that. But he says, my name is in him, and I made a list out for myself. I am Yahweh, that is my memorial name forever, right? Exodus chapter 3. Before I was known as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's God, that was El Shaddai, okay? Now, though, I'm going to reveal myself to you as Yahweh. And he says, I will, that's the I am statement, I will bring you to the land, in chapter 6:8. And then in chapter 12, and to the very day the Lord brought them out. There's the I am statement again. And then it moves forward. The angel of the Lord went before and behind them, guarding and guiding them in Exodus 14:19, right? Before them and behind them. What is he going to say to us in the following verses? He's going to send him before them, right? I'm going to send an angel before you to do what? To guard you. And also he will go along the way with you to do what? To bring you into the land. So in that you see the idea of leading and then protecting and guiding them in. So before them and behind them again. Very cool. We'll go before you to guard you along the way. We'll bring you to the place. Obey his voice. Now, boy, there's some New Testament ones on this. Where do you think? John chapter 14, verse 24, where it tells us, I and the Father are one. Right, full authority, full oneness of it, which is what's being portrayed here. If he has authority to forgive sin, he is God, right? And he says, therefore, don't be rebellious toward him. He will not pardon your transgression. And then he says, since my name is in him. In other words, again, back to John 14. Actually, I marked 14:10 on this one with the Father. In 14:24, I said he has God's full authority. So it gives him oneness with the Father, full authority of the Father. And then John 14:10. No, the other one is Matthew 9:6. Matthew 9:6. Somebody look that up. Matthew 9:6. I'm trying to remember what was in there. I didn't have space to type a note to myself. Sometimes I look these up and go, oh, that's really good. But then I don't remember.
But in order that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sin.
There it is. So Matthew 9:6 tells you he has that authority to forgive sin. So those verses in John chapter 14 and that verse in Matthew 9:6, collectively you build enough information to go back to this passage and say, he's the one that has the authority. He's the one who has the power. He goes before and behind. And he says, you must obey his voice, and he won't forgive you if you don't. So pardoning of sins is there. And so you get this bigger picture of who is this angel again. So you and I, or anyone who's confused about all these, quote, theophanies, which is a pre-incarnate appearance of God himself in some form or fashion, like the burning bush or the cloud or the Shekinah glory, the cloud of glory, or also pre-incarnate appearances of Jesus himself, like when he appears to Abraham and he's one of three angels that he's referred to in the beginning, but as you go through that storyline, you see, oh no, this is Jesus. The others go down into Sodom and Gomorrah, but Jesus stays behind.
And the foreshadowing here is when they go in, specifically I remember when they go in for Jericho, and Joshua, there's a man, and he comes, he says, are you with me? Because he's the
Yes,
commander of the Lord's
and I am the
army,
commander of the host.
Are you against us?
Right.
And then
I'm the commander of the host. Yes.
Jesus leads them.
Yes, right, because I am the commander of the host. So again, I think one of the things Exodus is doing for people, I think on the whole through this study, I'm hoping, is it's showing you very, very often you have to be very careful to read in detail, and you have to do a little bit of extra work and resource it. But Exodus on the whole, anytime there's an angel or a presence or like the cloud or the whatever, these are all Jesus, pre-incarnates of Jesus, or theophanies of God himself showing his presence. So it's God on the mountaintop and he's speaking to Moses. But other times is my servant will go before you. That's Jesus as a Christophany of him going before them as a cloud and as a pillar. I think those are really good. He says, is this the one that says, no, it's going to come later. Okay, so let's just title this last part and move on to really quickly cover the last part. This is the Abrahamic promise. That's the subject matter, right? Concerning that, and that's in 20 to 23. So we're going to break it down. We're going to do 20 to 33. Oops, I should have put that in green so that I was consistent. Sorry. Okay, so 20 to 33 covers conquest of the land. Okay, that's what he's saying. God's angel, and I'm going to put a cross on it, meaning Jesus. He will guard them. And lead them. Bring them, it says. Bring them to the land. So that's going to be in verse 20 and 23. It says it twice, actually, right? And then the next part, God is going to do what concerning how they're going to take up this land? He's going to drive the enemies out how?
He's going to completely destroy them.
Uh-huh. And how is he going to do it?
Little by little.
Uh-huh.
The next part, I see.
Yep, little by little.
Little by little. Because you have to make more of you. You have to become fruitful, so you have to make even more of you.
Yeah, exactly. Little by little. Okay, so that's verse 30, that's verse 20 and 23. And then he goes on to instruct them again. Don't make covenants. Don't allow them to live in your land. Those are very articulate statements there. And if they serve the Lord, what will he do? In could be 25 or 23. I've got both on this page. I don't know what I did.
Bless your bread and your water.
Yeah, what verse is that?
25.
Okay, thank you.
And remove sickness from your beds.
Okay, there you go. I will bless you. Okay, that's why I had both of those, 23 and then 25, right? If you serve the Lord, I will basically I will bless you. I'll bless this and I'll do all these other things for you. Again, conditional covenant. If you obey me, I will bless you. If you disobey, I will curse. And meaning I will withhold my blessing and I will allow bad things to come up upon you, right? So then I've got on my thing here, topical study. This was my personal journey about my angel. And if you wanted to do that, you could have. And I just went through verses 20 to 23, and I made a list, right? A very simple list. Made a list. That was number one. Then number two, what I did is I went to book context. and looked on the whole. And then the third thing I did is I went to references. Right? In totality, what I found is this is Jesus. And those cross references, let me look here. Yeah, some of them were Old and New Testament, Old and New Testament, Old and New Testament. Okay, so I did cross references, book context, and I made a list from the immediate context. So, immediate context. I'm teaching you a little inductive review here. Are you seeing it? I love to do this to my students. I like to make sure that you understand the process. How did I come to my conclusions? How am I so certain that this is Jesus and not something else, not just an angel? It's because I exercised all the principles of doing inductive study. The first one is you make an immediate context list. The second thing you do is you look at the book context on the whole about who leads, right? Where else do we see angel appear? Well, we know that's all the way back in when we see the angel that appears at the burning bush. And we went through all kinds of twists and turns on that one to figure that out, that was actually God himself speaking from within the bush. And it could be that it was Jesus himself or it's God himself, either one. It doesn't matter. They're both God, right? So God is speaking from within the bush, and there he's referred to as an angel. Okay? So that's the first mention of the angel. And the idea of the concept of who leads and who's coming in behind. We see the Shekinah glory and the cloud and so forth. So what you could do is you could go all through the book of Exodus, collect all your information about this mysterious personage or these mysterious imageries that are presented as being authority, power, presence, instruction, all these things, and you could collect all that information together right out of the book of Exodus, book context in Exodus, on the whole, in other words, and you can find anything that might help you understand a little bit more about God's angel. And then the last thing would be going into these cross references, which I just mentioned a couple, like for instance Matthew 9:6, and then John has a couple of really good, I would just say John 14 on the whole, but I picked out 10 and 24 in particular from my chart. But you could read more on that. So that gives you the bigger picture on how to go through a topical understanding of who is this angel, my angel. And this is the danger of dropping in to any book to try to read something, because how often do we get sent as a cross-reference in a lot of homework assignments and other kinds of studies, but you don't get the context. So if all you did was drop into this and you say, it's my angel did that, and they go, well, no, it's an angel. It says it's an angel. Well, you know what angel means? Messenger. Jesus is God's messenger. What does he say in the Gospel of John? I only speak the words that the Father speaks. I only do the things that the Father does. He is God's representative. He's God's authority. He has full authority. He is the image of the invisible God. And if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, right? Okay. How much time do I have? 15 minutes? 20? Okay. So now we're on to Exodus 24, girls and boys. Let's start off on this one. Well, what we see going on here is basically what about the covenant? Okay, concerning the covenant, what's happening to it? We've had little pieces. The Ten Commandments have been given, all these judicial laws, all these ceremonial laws, right? So they've been giving moral law, judicial law, ceremonial laws. All the way back in 19, he said, will you do this? That's back when we saw the mountain shaking and all this, really, where that word perceive came up. They perceived God. How did they perceive who God was in that one? But they were terrified, but how did they perceive it? What was happening that they could see, that they could, quote, perceive? They saw thunder, lightning, a trumpet. Remember all the terrifying sounds? That was how God was perceived. They perceived it was God. They didn't see it was God. But it does say, and they saw God.
Well, what else could do
But they didn't really, but they didn't really see God. They perceived him, is what it says in chapter 19. They perceived it was God. Okay, so here we've got then this thing here. Now we've had all this precursor to this. Now we're at the point of inauguration. Okay. Paragraphs. We're going to do verses 1 and 2. What's going on in those first couple of verses?
To do with distance
Yeah.
of worship.
Okay. So it sounds like instructions again, right?
Yeah.
We're back to instruction. So again, what seems to be the major continuity in all of these chapters we've been looking at, I'm instructing you as to what's going to be within this contract that you are going to agree to or not agree to. And this is how you're going to do these things. And if you agree to it, then we will sign that. We will actually ratify it here in a moment. But right now, we're at the point where we're about to inaugurate it. And I want to make sure that you understand that I have principles about how we're going to work this relationship between you and me. And in this case up here, the first two verses, he says to Moses, come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall worship at a distance. So he's saying you can only come up, all of you can only come up just so far. And then he says, Moses alone, however, shall come up near to the Lord, but they shall not come near to me, nor shall the people come up with them. So he gives basically three kinds of instructions here. I think is really very interesting. So God is teaching them or instructing them on how to approach him, right? Are you already seeing where I'm going? How to approach God. The first one had to do with Moses. The second part has to do with the leaders, or the rulers in this case, because they're not yet called priests, right? The last one has to do with the people. Are you seeing it? Okay, verses 2 and then 4. All right, so later, we're not there yet, but what is this foreshadowing for us?
It's kind of like the people can only go so far to the tabernacle. Then you have the priest that can do this, and then there's the high priest that can go.
Okay, so we have a high priest here. We have the general priests. And then we have the people. It's a foreshadow format. It's a formula that he's beginning to say to them. There's going to be a way that each of you are going to be allowed to approach me. And don't mess with it. Do it my way or don't do it at all. Or die. Do it or die. And also at this point, though, it's you must agree to this or you're not entering into covenant with me. Because there's a reason for me having this principle in place. And I think for Gentiles today in our modern era of trying to come to understand God and what our worship of him is about. And anytime we enter into the Old Testament, sometimes we get our armor up and it looks like that's not fair, I don't like that seems unjust, and does he hate women, and does he, how cruel of him to do that to this people or that people. But God is saying, it's my way. This is how you must approach me, and there has to be an agreement at this point. You must agree that it's my way or the highway, right? Okay, so God instructs Israel how they're going to approach him. It's a foreshadow, so I'm just going to put a little puffy cloud around that. That's just a foreshadow of what's going to come later. But he's telling Moses what he can do. He can come all the way into the Shekinah glory later. You come within the cloud. The rulers, they come up to a certain place and they are allowed to approach the Lord, but only to a certain point. How is that worked out in the tabernacle later? Well, the priests get to do what? Go to the inner court. They get to do the sacrifices. They get to do the linen ephods. They get to play the music. They can actually even enter into the first tabernacle area, the holy place. And they can service the candle lights and the showbread and the whatever. But who is allowed to enter into the Holy of Holies? Only the high priest. In this, and only on a special day and only once a year. Oh, we're going to get all that later. So Moses is representative at this moment of this eventual high priest. The rulers are the priesthood in general, and the people are the people. And there's a system, and all of it has a picture of how to approach God and why. And it's so rich and deep, we don't have time to do it. That's the way that is. Okay, 3 to 8. Okay, there, yes. And in those sacrifices are being made for what purpose? There you go. This is covenant is being ratified by blood. Ultimately, that's the goal. I mean, there's a lot of other pieces of information in here, but that is the major piece of this here is that it's going to be ratified by the blood. Let me see. Did I write it down here? I had it somewhere. I did some. Oh, here it is over here. Ratify. I think I want to put this up front. To ratify, what does ratify mean? Did anybody look that up? It's 2964. And it means, number one, to make valid. Because up to this point, it's just words on paper, and it's just, this is what I'm expecting, and they have to respond. Are you willing to do this or not, right? So it's to make it that. Now we're at the point of we're going to make it valid, and secondarily, it's going to be to confirm publicly or solemnly, to confirm it. Okay, I forgot my E in there. Okay. Solemnly, yeah, SOLEMNLY is what my spell check says. Not necessarily how I would have spelled it. So, in other words, what does ratifying a covenant do? Basically, what is going on here is it's formalizing it, right? Ratifying the covenant will formalize it. Making it binding. Because up to this point, it isn't, right? Up to this point, it's just words on paper, words spoken between the two, even agreements are verbally made, but that doesn't set a covenant in place yet. What is going to ratify it is going to be the blood. So now we're going to look at this subject of how this is going to do. So 3 to 8, what we have in 3 to 8 are words that have been written down. So let's put this up. I'm going to carry this over here. 3 to 8 is going to be continued. All right, we've got the words are recanted, right? So what does that tell you? What does the word recount mean? To say them again. So when, right, and so when was it said the first time that now it's being said again? After. Actually, there's another time. Was there a time before this? When the people answered, what did they say in this? Everything the Lord has said we will do. Where have you heard that before? Yeah, back in Exodus 19:8. So the words are recounted. Number 1, first stated in 19:8. All the words we will do. That's what they said all the way back in the first one. Number 2, now here we see them, the words written down, and they're saying, the people answered. Here it is in is it 3, what verse are we in there where they're saying, all we will do it? Yeah, we will do it. There it is. All that we do. Yeah, 7. Now we're in Exodus 24:7. We will do it. Okay. So now they've recanted them. The words are written down. My brain is really fluttering today. Okay, so now this is going to be, by the way, I'm going to put this in a special color. This is the 3rd time. Just so you catch it. This is the 3rd time they have made this promise. And I think that's significant. Why? I love it when these things come up over and over. This is 3 times it's said by Israel, we will do it. And this 3rd time is in 24:7. The first stated there. The second one wasn't in 7. The second one was in, we will do it. Oh, here in verse 3. Verse 3, we will do it. Now it's in 24:7, okay? So they first stated it in 19:8, then they said it in verse 3, and now they're saying it again in verse 7. So 3 times it says, we will do it, we will do it, we will do it. Isn't that interesting? Reminds me of a story of a man who betrayed Jesus. And how many times did he deny Jesus? 3 times. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Then what did Jesus do to rectify or to reestablish that relationship? He allowed him 3 times. Do you love me, Peter? Do you love me? Right? You know I love you. Do you love me? Yeah. It's so beautiful. So this idea of stating things 3 times, there's history in it. There's more New Testament history in it. This is affirming, 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 and that's a done deal. Scripture says you have to have 3 witnesses generally, 2 or 3 witnesses, but generally 3 witnesses to make a matter settled. So I think that's in Numbers somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Now the next thing, what we see. Let's just talk about what we see. Moses builds what? What did he do? He built an altar. Now you and I, we know this is so familiar to us, right? And they had 12 pillars as well. And we don't know where they were placed, but there were just pillars that were put around this altar area, right? Representing those 12 tribes. After they built an altar, then what did he do? He makes sacrifices that are made. That's in verse 5. This was in verse 4. Now we're in 5. Okay. There were 2 kinds. Number 1, there was the burnt offering. And then the second one is the peace offerings. Now, I'm going to talk you through this rather than write it down for time's sake here. Burnt offerings. What do you know about the burnt offerings? Does anybody know anything about them? Okay, let me just read my notes since you probably didn't have time. Okay, it's smoke ascends to God as a soothing aroma. Okay, the word burnt offerings definitely, it just distinctly means to ascend or to go up. So the burnt offering is burning, and what's coming up? The smoke. And there are verses that says, and he smells the sweet aroma. It's as a sweet aroma. It's like barbecue time, right there. He's a my husband says that's why he's a Texan. Okay, burnt offerings. It's number 5930 is the number for burnt offerings. I know. God's a Texan because he likes the barbecue. Okay, the burnt offerings is number 5930, and it means to ascent. ASCENT, ascent, or to go up, meaning the smoke goes up, right? The smoke of the offering will go up on that altar. Its smoke ascends to God as a soothing aroma. You can look up Leviticus 1:9 as a reference on that one. It's really cool. There's some other ones too. It's a sacrifice of atonement, a general acknowledgement of sin, basically. So it's just in general, the people are in this process of making this covenant. They're acknowledging they're sinners and God is holy, and they have to approach him in a very specific way. He's laid out all the principles. He's also laid out how they're going to operate as a nation. They're saying, yes, Lord, we will do this. Now they're going to give an offering because, again, it's a confession. We are sinners and you are holy. And what I thought was really interesting, though, was this. The priests are always to offer a morning and an evening burnt offering, keeping the fire burning always. Really? Yes. This is in Exodus 29:38-42. We're going to get there. In other words, really soon. We're already in 24, so it's not going to be very far off. But I got to thinking about that. Why constantly a burning? Whenever they're in camp, they can't do it while they're traveling, obviously, but whenever they're in a camp, they are to keep the burnt offering burning and burning and burning. And once they get into Israel, that fire never stops. It goes on for all the years that they're on the land. There is a burnt offering of some kind. Now, there are special burnt offerings that have to do with these feasts here, but then there's this daily burnt offering. What's the daily burnt offering about? What is it picturing for us? Well, if the burnt offering has to do with confession of sin,
It's an everyday thing.
it's every day. And so what does it tell you about God? If he's there every single day, as you're an Israelite, you go by the altar that's burning, and every day you're seeing it. And if you understand that has to do with you confessing you're a sinner, as you approach that altar or pass by that altar, you look upon it. What does that tell you about God? He's holy. He's holy. He's always there for you to come with your confessions. And how often is his mercy then being extended? Everyday mercy. Your mercies are new every morning, right? So I got to thinking about 1 John chapter 1. If you are faithful and just to confess your sins, or if you will confess your sin, God is faithful and just to forgive your sins. So we are to go daily before the Lord in confession. So if the idea is this particular altar is to be burning all the time in their camp, it's just expressing to them your holy God that you serve is merciful and present and ever and eternally extending grace to you. All you have to do is come and acknowledge. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. So Exodus, I'm going to put on here also Exodus, because we're going to get there. You might even want to go ahead and look at it. 29:38-42. Okay. Okay, so now we've got the blood sacrifice. So these are the pieces of this covenant process. You're going to make these two offerings, resulting in a blood sacrifice. Now, what do they do with the blood? Blood sacrifice?
Half of it in the basin,
Yeah.
the other half on the altar.
It's sprinkled in two places. One on the altar. And then where's the rest of it sprinkled? On the people. Yeah, so it's captured in two basins. One goes on the altar. The rest of it is sprinkled on the people. The picture that I've always had in my head was one that was shown to me in a video or a movie I watched. But they took, again, the hyssop branch, and it may not have been a hyssop in their situation here, but took a branch of some kind and dipped it and then just flung to sprinkle. And the point was it was a symbolic picture of them being touched by the blood. a little bit like the Passover over the door, and it's there and present for them. But the idea is it's on the blood. Now, if you were making a personal covenant, you would walk between the pieces of flesh where the blood has been collected in the well below, and you would walk through the blood. Sometimes they would make their sacrifice and cut it and pour it into liquid, and they would drink of the blood. It's another way of applying the blood. So there's lots of ways in covenant making for them to do that, but always the presence of blood was necessary as a part of covenant making. And in the case of these offerings, without the shedding of blood, Hebrews says, no remission of sin. There is no forgiveness of sin. So there's so many pieces in this that we could go into. So now that's that. And what this does, what does all this equal? Ratify. The written covenant. The written vows. Okay? So that's where we're at here. Galatians, this is a really good verse. Go to Galatians on your own, 3:15 to 17. Okay? And in there it says, when it has been ratified, no one will set it aside or adds to its conditions. It lets you know that a ratified covenant cannot be changed or altered in any way. Once it's ratified with blood, done deal. That's why you know your salvation in Jesus Christ is a done deal. If you have been washed by the blood of Jesus Christ, it is once for all, eternal. It can never be undone. You can't drink of the cup of Jesus Christ, which is symbolic of his blood, drinking the blood and eating of his flesh. It cannot be undone. Why? It's within you. It becomes a part of you. It is who you are. So the Spirit comes, it abides, it's there forever until the day of redemption. So this again ratifies all this. The Webster's Dictionary about the idea of ratify, it says formal approval and establishment of a covenant, making it binding and in effect. Pretty good. Okay. Am I over? Okay, 9 to 11. We've got Moses and the leaders. And it says they saw God. And did not die. I changed the wording to shorten it because I didn't want to write all the thing. Okay, one point on this. I'm going to put it up here. Never violate what? Known doctrine.
So then maybe they just saw his feet.
Exactly. Never violate known doctrine. I know, I heard everybody in this, but again, this is that idea of that picture of perceiving the Lord. Perceived him in the thunder. They perceived him in the lightning. They perceived him in the burning bush. It's a perception is probably what's going on here because we have a doctrine. The doctrine says you can't see God and live. No man has seen God at any time. This is in John 1:18, 1 John 4:12, Exodus 33:20. No man can see me and live. God speaks it directly to Moses. So the known doctrine is you can't actually see God and live. So this is not, when they said they see God, you really should use the word perceive. It should have been perceive. They used perceive back in 19. I don't know why they didn't do it here. They perceived God. But it does kind of describe what they're actually seeing. Yeah. Under his feet, they're seeing something that's a pavement, that's crystal, that's all. They're seeing the crystal sea. Yes. So I went to into Revelation chapter 4, verse 6, Revelation 15:2. And then another one in Isaiah 66:1. But in Revelation, both of them, again, show that same picture of God in his throne room, a sea of glass at his feet, and the multitudes of people. It's beautiful. So there's a consistency in the idea of the sapphire. Ezekiel had one too, beneath the feet. I can't remember. Yeah. So there's that. They saw God, they ate and they drank. In other words, they perceived God by the powerful sight under his feet. They perceived God by the powerful signs and thunder and lightning and so forth. Those are on my chart for you. Okay, 12 to 14. I'm going to put out here, no one sees God and lives. And I'm going to take you to the Exodus one, 33:20. We're going to get there, but it helps you to have that up front. How far over am I on this? 12 to 14? God called Moses up to the mountain. And he gives them the stone tablets. Okay, I'm not going to go into anything more on that. And then 15 to 18, because I think it's pretty straightforward. Last one is Moses is on the mountain. How long? 40 days and 40 nights. And you know what's interesting is, I don't know if I've got it, I don't think I have it on here, but there is this cross-reference, and it says he did not eat or drink for 40 days or 40 nights.
Well,
Yep.
here you have verse 14. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Verse 11. Let me see.
12, 13, 14,
Whenever
15.
we said, okay, we're going to do all this, and then it gets sprinkled, and we're going to do all this, right? And so everything's done. Moses goes up there. It's only 40 days, and there's a golden cake.
I know,
all this
I
stuff
know,
going on.
I know. It's like these are fickle people. You know, they have come out of, but you know what? We're just the same. Aren't we just the same? We see God move a mountain in our own personal lives sometimes. Heal us, restore something, fix stuff. My whole house is painted brand new this week. It looks lovely, restored. It's kind of that imagery. I know that's an imagery, not a real thing. But the imagery is there. It's all restored. It's all made brand new. And he does that for us every single day. That's why the burnt offering every day continually burns while it's in their midst, in their camp. It never ceases to burn. His love, it's enduring. It's always available. His grace is constantly being and perpetually being presented to us. All we have to do is recognize who we are, recognize who he is, and bow our knee. That's it. I love it. All right. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry it was over a little.